A wealthy man gave $100 to a homeless woman, but the following day, he saw her kneeling at his wife's grave. Hello everyone, enjoy these relaxing moments as you watch. Jack Hayes had lost his beloved wife 23 years ago, and with her went the joy in his life. Each week he visited her grave in silence, reminiscing until one rainy afternoon when he noticed a young homeless woman holding a baby, soaked and shivering. Moved by instinct, Jack handed her $100. But the next day, something shocking occurred. That same woman was kneeling at his wife's grave, tears glimmering in her eyes. Who was she, and what was her connection to Emily, the love of his life? What Jack discovered next would unravel decades of secrets and uncover a truth he never expected. Watch until the end. You won't believe how this story unfolds. Jack Anderson was the type of man people read about in magazines, a self-made billionaire from Charleston, South Carolina. He owned a chain of real estate companies, luxury cars and penthouses in New York and Miami. He had it all except peace. For the last 23 years had left Jack with a wound no amount of money could heal. Every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, rain or shine, Jack visited Greenwood Cemetery, where among the whispering oaks and worn gravestones lay Emily Anderson, his late wife and one true love. Emily was not merely beautiful. She exuded warmth with a smile that could halt a storm and a laugh that made strangers grin back. Where Jack provided reason and strategy, Emily brought heart and soul, illuminating his life until an unexpected illness took her away. Despite Jack's fortune, doctors informed him that there was nothing they could do. He held Emily's hand to the very end, helplessly watching the light vanish from her eyes. When she departed, a piece of Jack went with her. From that day onward, Jack became a mere shadow of himself. He functioned day by day, signing contracts and attending board meetings. But his soul remained anchored in the past. The grand home where they once danced and dreamed turned into a mausoleum of memories where the fireplace stayed cold, the piano remained silent, and the overwhelming silence was deafening. Jack's only ritual, the single aspect that made him feel somewhat alive, was visiting her grave, spending hours there, occasionally whispering memories or merely staring at her name etched in stone. Emily Grace Anderson, beloved wife, forever missed. That's when it happened. One chilly Tuesday afternoon, while the rain gently fell and thunder grumbled in the distance, Jack parked his Bentley by the cemetery gates and walked along the familiar stone path, umbrella in hand. He had stopped registering the world around him until then. Across the street from the cemetery entrance, beside a rundown building with flickering neon signs, sat a young woman huddled under the narrow awning of Main Street Deli. She clutched a small bundle in her arms, a baby. Her hair was drenched and her thin coat clung to her skin. She looked exhausted, lost, and cold. Jack's feet moved before his mind caught up, and he approached her slowly, the rain tapping against his umbrella like a metronome. "Are you okay?" he inquired. The woman looked up, startled, her dark, sunken, tired eyes meeting his. She hesitated before nodding feebly. "I'm just waiting for the rain to pass." Jack glanced at the infant in her arms, who peeked out from a tattered blanket, peacefully asleep despite the weather. Something twisted in Jack's chest. "You shouldn't be out here," he said. "Do you need anything? Food? Formula?" The young woman hesitated and then murmured, "We haven't eaten since yesterday." Without a second thought, Jack reached into his wallet and handed her a wad of cash, 3 crisp $100 bills. "Here," he said. "Get something warm to eat and dry clothes." She stared at the money as if it were a foreign object, slowly accepting it with trembling hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack nodded awkwardly. He felt the urge to learn her name, to understand why she was out there in the cold with a baby, but something in her eyes halted him. Pain, a story too immense for a sidewalk conversation. He turned to leave but paused. "What's your name?" "Grace," she replied quietly. "Grace Mitchell." "Nice to meet you, Grace. I'm Jack." And then he walked away. However, that night, Jack couldn't sleep. The image of Grace and the baby haunted him, Her hollow eyes, her drenched hair, the way she held that child, as if he were her entire universe. Something about her felt familiar. The next day, Jack returned to Greenwood Cemetery. The clouds still loomed, and the wind carried the scent of wet earth and pine. He stepped through the gates, his heart weighing heavy, and made his way to Emily's grave. There she was, Grace, kneeling in front of Emily's gravestone, holding her baby and whispering to the grave. Jack froze. His blood ran cold. Why was she there? How did she know Emily? His breath caught as he approached. Grace seemed lost in her thoughts, her lips moving in soft murmurs. The scene felt intimate, too intimate. Finally, Jack spoke. "What are you doing here?" Grace turned, startled. Her eyes widened as she recognized him, tears welling. "I didn't mean to intrude," she whispered. I needed to come." Jack's voice became firm. "Why do you know my wife?" She glanced down at the baby in her arms and then back at him, her lips trembling. "Emily was my mother. What would you do if someone claimed to be the secret child of your deceased spouse? Do you think Grace is telling the truth, or is something else at play? If this story touched your heart, drop a like and a heart shape in the comments. And if you want to know what happens next, comment more below." Jack stood frozen, his heart pounding so loudly that he could barely hear the rain. "What did you just say?" he asked again, his voice low and sharp. Grace swallowed hard. Her eyes locked onto his. "Emily Anderson was my mother." Jack took a step back, as if the weight of her words had pushed him. He shook his head slowly. "That's not possible," he whispered. "Emily, she never had children. We never had children." "I know," Grace replied gently. "I only found out a few weeks ago myself." Jack stared at her, his mind racing. Was this some twisted scam or just a coincidence? But her eyes, they held no malice, only pain. The same kind of pain he had seen in the mirror every day for the past 23 years. Grace held her baby closer and continued, her voice quaking. "I was adopted. I grew up in Arizona. My adoptive parents were kind, but I always knew I didn't quite belong. They told me early on that I was adopted, but they didn't know who my birth mother was." She paused for a breath, and Jack remained silent, his thoughts tangling like barbed wire. "A few weeks ago," she said, "I was going through some of my old belongings and found a letter. It had my birth mother's name on it, Emily Grace Williams." Jack's heart skipped. Williams was Emily's maiden name. I started digging around. I tracked down records, old photos, and then I found her obituary. It led me here. Jack's world spun. He remembered every conversation with Emily, her smiles, her secrets, the moments they had shared. Had she truly kept something this monumental from him? A child? He looked at Grace again, his chest tightening. "I don't understand," Jack muttered. "We talked about kids. She always said the timing wasn't right or that we weren't ready, but she never told me." Grace nodded solemnly. "Maybe she was afraid. Maybe it was before you two met." Jack's eyes flickered. "How old are you?" 23, she said. 23, the year Emily died. A wave of realization hit him like a freight train. "She was pregnant before we got married," he whispered, "and she never told me." The rain thickened, mirroring the storm inside his chest. Grace stood slowly, still holding her son. "I didn't come here to cause trouble," she said softly. I needed to see her grave to feel something. I grew up not knowing who I was, and now that I do, it's overwhelming." Jack's hands trembled as he stared at Emily's tombstone. The engraved letters haunted him. The woman he had worshipped, mourned, and visited weekly had hidden a daughter. His wife had taken a secret to the grave, a secret that was now staring him in the face. As a baby cried, Grace gently bounced him, whispering comfort. "What's his name?" Jack asked, his voice hollow. "Lucas," she replied. "Lucas?" Jack glanced at the tiny boy, his delicate lashes fluttering as he settled back to sleep. He looked so small, so fragile. "So that makes me—" Jack stopped himself. He couldn't say it. A grandfather, Grace finished for him, her eyes shimmering with tears. If that's something you want. Jack didn't respond. He couldn't. He just walked away, the rain soaking through his coat, the cemetery blurring around him. That night, Jack didn't eat or sleep. He sat in his study with the lights off, the fireplace cold and Emily's photo on the mantel staring back at him. His mind was a battlefield of memory and betrayal. Had she ever tried to tell him? Was she ashamed, protecting him, or hiding from herself? Jack opened a drawer in his desk and pulled out a leather box. Inside were letters, old ones Emily had written him over the years, love notes, grocery lists, anniversary cards. He read through them one by one, searching for a clue, anything, but they were filled with love, void of truth. The next morning, Jack drove to the records office requesting birth records, adoption papers, anything that might connect Emily Williams to Grace Mitchell. Then, he found it. A single sheet of aged paper, a birth certificate from a hospital in Nashville, dated 23 years ago. Mother, Emily Williams, father, unknown, daughter, Grace. Jack sank into a chair, gripping the paper as if it were fire. It was real, every bit of it. His wife had a daughter before they married, and that daughter was now in front of him, alive, hurting, and alone. 3 days later, Jack returned to the cemetery. Grace was there again, and this time she looked up as he approached. "Why didn't she tell me?" Jack asked, the pain evident in his voice. Grace shook her head. "I don't know." Silence hung between them, but it wasn't cold like before. It was thoughtful, heavy. "She loved deeply," Jack said quietly, almost to himself. "Maybe she thought she was protecting me or herself." He turned toward Grace. "I don't know what kind of relationship you're looking for or what you expect from me, but I want to learn about you, about him." He glanced at Lucas, who was cooing in her arms. Grace blinked back tears. "I'd like that." Jack nodded, and for the first time in decades, he felt a shift inside, a crack in the grief that had bound him. Perhaps this wasn't simply the end of a chapter. Maybe somehow it was a new beginning. If you were in Jack's shoes, would you open your heart to Grace and baby Lucas? Or would the betrayal be too great to forgive? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Type family if you believe in second chances. The following week, Jack couldn't shake Grace and little Lucas from his mind. He had spent so many years enveloped in shadows of grief that the sudden appearance of a daughter and grandson had cracked his world wide open. At first, it felt like a betrayal. Now it served as a question he needed to answer. Who was Emily really, the woman he had loved so fiercely? How could she have hidden something so life-altering from him? One rainy afternoon, Jack climbed into the attic for the first time in years. Dust clung to every corner and boxes sat untouched since Emily's passing. He rummaged through old photo albums, dried flowers, and letters until he spotted a small, floral-patterned suitcase tucked beneath a dusty tarp. It was hers. Jack unlatched the suitcase slowly. Inside were several notebooks tied with a ribbon, photographs from before their marriage, and a sealed envelope with his name on it. His hands trembled. The handwriting was unmistakably Emily's. He tore it open and began to read. "If you're reading this, then somehow the truth found its way to you. I never meant to lie. I never meant to hurt you, but I was scared, so scared. Before you and I ever met, I was young and in love with someone who wasn't ready to be a father. When I got pregnant, he disappeared. I was heartbroken, ashamed, and lost. I gave our baby up for adoption, believing it was the best choice. Then you came into my life. You saved me in ways you never knew. I wanted so badly to tell you about her, but I was terrified that it would change the way you looked at me, at us. Every time I tried, I convinced myself it wasn't the right moment, and eventually, I let time bury it. But not a day passed that I didn't think about her. Please, Jack, if she ever finds you, don't turn her away. She's a part of me, and if you can love her, it will be like loving me all over again. With all my heart, Emily." Tears blurred Jack's vision as he clutched the letter to his chest, finally understanding that she hadn't kept it from him out of shame or deceit. She'd done it out of fear and a deep, flawed love. She was human, and now Jack had a second chance to make things right. The next morning, he called Grace and invited her over. When she arrived, baby Lucas in her arms, she hesitated. "You sure this is okay?" she asked. Jack nodded, opening the door wider. "Come in." They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where he and Emily had shared morning coffees and late-night confessions. Lucas giggled on the floor, gnawing on a toy. "I found a letter," Jack said, sliding it toward Grace. She opened it slowly, her hands shaking as she read her mother's words. Tears slipped silently down her cheeks. "I always wondered if she thought about me," she whispered. "She did," Jack replied gently. "Every single day." They shared a moment of silence, with only the sound of Lucas babbling to himself. "I don't know what this means," Grace said. "I didn't grow up with her. I didn't grow up with you, but I feel like I finally know where I came from." Jack reached across the table, taking her hand. "I can't make up for the years we lost," he said, "but I can be here now, for you, for him." Grace smiled through her tears. "I'd like that." Jack glanced at Lucas, who crawled over and tugged at his pant leg. He lifted the boy into his lap and looked into his bright, curious eyes. Emily had given him one last gift, a family he never knew he had. Now, he had a reason to live again. How did this part of the story make you feel? Do you believe Jack should fully embrace Grace and Lucas as his family? If you feel touched by their journey so far, comment below and explain why. Subscribe to our channel. See you soon.